Some are Kansans you've heard about, others are Kansans you should hear about. This is the program where interesting people come to share their life stories. This week, a Kansas transplant whose passion for flight has taken her from the Civil Air Patrol to NASA, to the Air Capital. If it flies, there's a good chance Vicki Johnson knows something about it. With a father in the Air Force, Johnson was born in Spokane, Washington, and raised in rural Missouri. Encouraged by her father, she started taking flying lessons when she was 13 and got her pilot's license at 17. With a bent for the sciences, Johnson studied engineering in college, then landed a job at NASA. She earned her PhD in aerospace engineering and became a college professor. Then in 2000, Johnson moved to Wichita to work at the National Institute for Aviation Research, then Boeing, then Cessna. Now she's working for Spirit. This is one woman who knows her way around aircraft. Coming up, we'll talk about her prestigious career in the field dominated by men. And we'll find out what drives her passion for flight that soars ever higher. Get set for a half hour of stimulating conversation with Dr. Vicki Johnson, one-on-one. Hello and thanks for joining us. I'm Victor Hogstrom. It's a pleasure to welcome noted aerospace engineer Vicki Johnson to the program. Dr. Johnson, it's a pleasure to have you.
It's a pleasure to be here, Victor.
You began flying airplanes at age 17. You started taking lessons earlier because your father encouraged you to do so.
Correct.
What did your mom say about all that?
Mom was a very nervous flyer, but she was okay with it because the activity that let me take flying lessons was Civil Air Patrol. Mm-hmm. And that activity also gave me some great leadership experiences. She knew my flight instructor. She wasn't afraid. But before I got my license, we went out for a nighttime familiarization, and my flight instructor said, bring your mother and your sister along so that your mom can see what it's like and know that everything's okay when you're flying. So that's what we did. I got my license and she would fly with me. In fact, we flew up to a little town by where her father and brother lived and took them for a ride, my grandfather's first ever airplane ride.
And this was in the state of Washington?
This was in the state of Missouri.
Missouri?
Yes, I was born in Spokane, Washington, but family, mom and dad were both from Northwest Missouri. When my dad's father became ill, we moved back to Missouri to be close to family.
Your father is the one that directed you or encouraged you to fly?
Yes.
Why did he do that? He was in the Air Force?
He was in the Air Force. He wanted to be a pilot, but he wasn't coordinated enough. So he became a maintenance electrician, but he always had that dream of flying. When the opportunity came up, he worked at Ford Motor Company there in Claycomo, Missouri, and some of the people he worked with were the leadership, adult leaders in the Civil Air Patrol Squadron. And they told him, you need to get Vicki to come participate and she can learn to fly. And that's what happened.
And so you pursued this career throughout your entire life, and you received a bachelor's degree in aerospace engineering, a master's of science in flight sciences, a PhD in aerospace engineering, and then you went back to school and got an MBA in the management of technology.
That's right.
Wow, very impressive. Now, you could have gotten a job with this background anywhere in the United States, doing whatever you want to do, but you decided to move to Wichita. Tell us, how did that happen? What brought you here?
It was just a career progression. I've had the opportunity to work for the government. I worked at NASA Langley Research Center as a co-op student while I was doing my bachelor's degree. Then as a full-time employee, I did my master's part-time there. That's how I got the Flight Sciences Master's. NASA sent me to the University of Kansas. I went back to NASA. I left there about a year later, kind of decided to take my career on its own path. Went to Washington, D.C., from there to Houston, Texas. Had a good time in Houston because my sister and brother-in-law were there. From there, I went to Daytona Beach, Florida, and I was there for 4.5 years. I decided it was time to do something else, and I found a job at NIAR.
And NIAR is the National Institute for Aviation Research.
Correct, at Wichita State.
Okay.
Right. So I moved from Daytona Beach, Florida to Wichita, Kansas in January of 2000 during an ice storm. People said, "You need your head examined. What's wrong with you?" I came to Wichita and I actually love it here. When things didn't work out so well at NIAR, I looked around. I had turned down a possible opportunity at Boeing in St. Louis. And I called up the vice president that had rounded that up for me and said, "Well, I made a mistake, but I'm here and I love Wichita and Boeing is here. Can I go there?" And he made a call and I had an opportunity to go for an interview at Boeing. And I was really happy to be there working the international tanker transport.
And then from Boeing, you went to Cessna, now Spirit.
Correct.
This is a position, your career is mainly male-dominated. How do you find that? Explain what challenges and experiences you're having.
Well, it's interesting because it is very male-dominated, perhaps a little less so now than it was when I started out. When I graduated with my bachelor's degree, I was the only girl in my class. There were 13 of us. It was a small group. But I was one of the guys. One of the advantages that I have found to being in this field, when you go to a conference, you never find a line at the ladies' room like you do when you go to a concert or a public event. So that's kind of nice. Now, I just went to the Society of Women Engineers conference out in Anaheim, and there were lines. And we took over the men's rooms because there weren't that many men there.
Right.
Made it inconvenient for them. But it is a little bit different. You have to be used to it, get used to it, and I've adapted.
Are the men intimidated by you?
I don't think so. I have a lot of education, but when it comes to getting a job done, I'm just a person. And that's how I approach most of my tasks.
Mm-hmm. So today, is there any flying aircraft that you do not know anything about?
I'm sure there is. There are a bunch of classified airplanes that none of us know about.
Oh, government stuff.
Government stuff, right.
Well,
military.
let's talk about just the regular
The regular
stuff.
things.
Yeah.
I know quite a bit about a lot of airplanes. I would not claim, though, to be the expert. I really specialized in aircraft design, conceptual design, and some of the design tools, and then later in research and development. So more on the front end of what goes into these airplanes to make them
Mm-hmm.
good.
So you are a licensed pilot.
I am.
Do you still fly?
I do not. I have not flown since I've been in Kansas. This is a little like my trend. I got my license when I was in high school. I went off to college. I flew a little bit, mostly when I came home because Dad was paying. I went off and got my first job at NASA, and I didn't fly. And I took about a 20-year break. When I went to Embry-Riddle, they had a really good flying club modeled on the Cessna Flying Club. And so I got current again and flew a little bit then. Then I moved to Kansas. And I was just intimidated by the winds. I had enough money to fly, but it's like, there were probably even good reasons to fly. And I thought I should go do this. I should work on getting a commercial license and an instrument rating so I could be out safe flying around in all the weather. I just never quite did it.
So you have an ambition for aviation, went as far as getting yourself a PhD in aerospace engineering. It was not those flying lessons that your father paid for. Something drove you, something in you caused that ambition to really peak.
Yes.
Tell us about it.
When I was in junior high and high school, I loved algebra. I was going to be a high school algebra teacher. Then the Kansas City teacher strike happened when I was in 10th grade. It didn't affect us being in Liberty directly, but what I saw from the press about that was that high school teachers had some pretty tough conditions sometimes, and the money was not the greatest. And I thought, I really need to reevaluate. So I took my love of math, my like of science, and my love of flying and said, I think I can turn that into engineering, and I think it can be aerospace. And my goal at that time was to go to work for Cessna, because when I flew, it was in Cessna 172s, and those airplanes, the Missouri Wing Civil Air Patrol airplanes, were pretty well used, but I always felt very safe. And I thought, this is a company I could work for. It took me 25 years to get to Cessna because I went off on the NASA and research bent first, and I was a better engineer when I got to Cessna because of that. But that was where my heart was.
Did you ever dream of becoming an astronaut?
I did not. That's a question I got a lot. Are you going to be an astronaut? And the answer was no. When everybody can go to space, I'll go. But I'm more interested in creating and developing and the concept things rather than what I know the astronauts have, which when it comes to getting ready for a mission, it's a lot of training, a lot of repetition. And granted, they have to do a lot of quick thinking to get around things. That's why we send humans to space, because they're there and can think where a machine might not recognize everything. But I had no desire really to be an astronaut.
So tell us exactly, what does an aerospace engineer do?
Aerospace engineers can do a lot of things. They can do design work, they can run CATIA, the computer-aided design, develop models. They can do analysis, they can do testing. Testing can be anywhere from coupon size, small pieces, all the way up to full scale, all the way up to flight test. They can be flight test engineers and pilots. In my case, I work in research and technology. And rather than being one of the principal investigators that's out actually developing something, I work in the area where we manage the portfolio, all the projects that we're doing, and try to lay out processes to help the PIs be successful.
What do you enjoy most about your job?
Would I be lying if I said the paycheck? I have not been disappointed.
It must be a huge one.
Well, it's not huge, but it's very comfortable.
That's good.
I enjoy that.
You deserve it. You earned it.
I enjoy the people that I work with. The folks at Spirit are very nice. The folks in the aerospace industry are very nice. When I made the decision to go to NASA as a co-op, my mother, who worked for the Social Security Administration, said, no, don't go to work for the government. You don't want to work there. And I had another opportunity then, works at Martin Marietta out in Denver, Colorado. My application got lost to get there, and so I got the NASA job. She said, please don't go there. I did, and then she learned that NASA is not the same kind of organization that the Social Security Administration is. Mm-hmm. You know, you needed more than a high school diploma, and the people are very, very nice.
So what is the greatest challenge of your job?
I think it's the people. Dealing with.
They're nice, but they're still
nice,
challenging.
But sometimes they're challenging.
Okay.
Yes,
Explain that.
I have an example. We've just developed a new process in research and technology at Spirit where we're asking our principal investigators to document their project in a document that will be released into the Spirit document control system, so it will exist forever. Prior to this, they'd been documenting it wherever, and one of the challenges is, where is that? And 5 years later, did we ever do it? So I put together the process on what they needed to do, did training on it, 4 different sessions at different times, online so they could sit at their desk and dial in, desktop instruction, a copy of the video of the training, the slides, the frequently asked questions, all of that. There are some people who are really struggling to get that done. Fortunately, I'm finding if they'll come and ask, it's fairly easy to help them because it's really not a very deep request. It's fairly easy to do if they've been documenting things along the way.
Okay, that takes me to the next relaxing portion of our interview here.
Okay.
We'll play a little game, and I'll show you a photograph of someone or something, and you give me your impression, your immediate impression, when you see the picture. Okay.
Okay.
Let's begin.
All right. This is scary.
Wright Brothers.
Orville and Wilbur, bicycle mechanics. I went to a presentation once at an AIAA, that's American Institute of Aeronautics and Astronautics, student papers competition, and the speaker was from the San Diego Aviation Museum. He talked about that. They had lots of coffee mugs. They had a lot of company. People liked to drop by and see them.
Charles
Lindbergh. Yes. A very brave man, a very smart man, did a good thing with his Spirit of St. Louis, making a nonstop flight across the Atlantic. And I have a book about him. I'd like to read more because I don't know everything that I should know.
So between Lindbergh and the Wright Brothers, if you had to pick one to talk to right now, which one will it be?
The Wright Brothers.
Why is that?
Because they were involved in the conceptual design and how to make it work. And I'd like to talk about how they figured that out.
Right.
They did a good job.
They did.
Yes, they did.
They have us flying today.
Exactly. Exactly.
All right. Amelia Earhart.
Yes. I love Amelia Earhart. In fact, when I went to KU, I got a Zonta International Amelia Earhart scholarship, fellowship. One going and one coming back, which was good to help. But she was a very brave lady, a very smart lady. It's too bad that she was lost because it would be fun to talk to her about her experiences.
Next one, B-29 bomber.
B-29, Doc.
Doc, yes.
Doc. What a beautiful new facility for Doc over
Here
by the airport.
Wichita,
in
yes.
Wichita, yes, it's beautiful. And that airplane's Boeing at our site where Spirit is now made a lot of those airplanes very rapidly. Rosie the Riveter, Connie Platz, I think her last name is. I've met her, I've got her autograph on some things. I heard our CEO say when they checked out her work on the nose, those rivets, they only had to replace 7 out of 2,000.
Wow.
So she did really good work.
You know, we will be showing a documentary on Doc.
Excellent.
I think in January here on KPTS.
Excellent. I'll be watching.
Okay. The next one is Men on the Moon.
Yes. Neil Armstrong was first. He was my motivation at KU. I was the first female to get a PhD in aerospace engineering.
At KU?
At KU.
Wow.
There were others from other universities, but KU, I was the first one. And what really got me motivated was when the second lady showed up.
Oh.
And it's like, I better get going because I don't want to be Buzz Aldrin. Who wants to be the second?
Right, right.
Although I've met Buzz and he's a very nice man.
The Space Shuttle.
Yes. Really a marvel. I was going to graduate school when the Challenger accident happened. I was actually, for some reason that day, at home in Liberty watching on TV. And all I could think about was my friends at Langley that were watching in the cafeteria. It was a terrible thing. But space flight is risky.
Right. All right, and the next one is something that is new to our lives.
Yes.
The drone.
Drones. Those are exciting for what's going to come. because you've got a picture of an uncrewed drone that might take pictures or deliver a package, but the next thing coming is flying taxis.
Oh.
And at our Wichita Council of Engineering Society's banquet coming up in February, we're going to have someone speak about that.
How would that work? Flying taxis?
Flying taxis. You would go to a parking lot or a rooftop of a building, hop in this. At first there will probably be pilots because people won't trust autonomous, unpiloted. And it will fly you to the airport or to where you want to go. It'll be a great deal for big cities.
So like cars flying in the air?
Yes.
Like airplanes?
Airplanes. Electric powered, so they won't be real noisy or pollute a lot.
The potential for more crashes exists.
It does. It does. And one of the key pieces is control, because now it becomes a 4D situation where you have X, Y, Z, and you have time, and you have to know where everybody is and where they're going to be so they don't collide.
Like airplanes?
Like airplanes. I mean, it will have to integrate into the existing system.
Okay. The last one, SpaceX Starship.
How exciting. SpaceX has done such a great job. It's so fun to watch their launches. I love to watch the boosters land when they come in and together come sit down and there they are on land. They have a little more trouble with getting the main booster out in the ocean landing on the barge, but it's pretty exciting. They're going to figure out ways to reduce the cost, as are lots of other people, which will make space much more accessible.
So is there any one of these you're excited about to try flying on?
Well, I've been on a B-17.
Okay.
That was fun. I would think it would be a little bit like Doc.
But
I'm SpaceX, yeah.
You'd be willing to try that?
I'd be willing to try that. The spaceship company is the one, the Richard Branson, that's going to do, is selling $250,000. I think their price was. You can buy a ticket to go suborbital, so it's a relatively short flight, but you get to what is the definition of space, and that's pretty exciting.
Where there's where you begin to float.
Exactly, weightlessness.
Weightlessness, right? Okay.
For a while.
So how big of a priority should human space flight be, in your opinion, traveling to the moon, to Mars, and beyond?
I think it should be a very big priority because we are using up the resources on planet Earth, and it would be really good for us to find other places that we might be able to go and live, or ways to go live in space economically. In addition, when development happens for space programs, technology comes out of that. Think of Tang, came from the NASA program. We get new technologies as communications business, internet everywhere is happening. There's so many things that will make life better here, and so many things that we will learn, that it's a really good place to learn, and it challenges us.
What dramatic advancements do you see in the horizons for aerospace?
We're getting lighter, which helps, more efficient to help.
Lighter meaning what?
Less weight, lighter materials, going to composites as opposed to metallics. I think a lot of the big advances will be in propulsion, and the other thing will be in integrated systems. One of the hot topics right now is morphing wings. So a little bit like the Wright Brothers, where you don't have control surfaces, you have areas of the wing that you can change the material properties to change what happens, the control. That's pretty exciting.
So when your head is not in the cloud, Doctor, what do you like to do?
I like to read. I love to read. I like to watch TV sports. I'm a huge KU Jayhawks basketball fan. I'm hoping to become a KU Jayhawks football fan in the near term. I hope that Les Miles is going to do a good job. I have friends that I hang out with. I have a group that Sunday nights we get together. It's been at my house. Now we're moving around a little bit, but ladies from church. Spend a lot of time at church. I'm very involved there.
So have you formed, with your background and your work, your interaction with people, living in central Kansas, what's your philosophy of life? Have you formed one?
I have. It probably relates more to work, but I apply it to everything. I have two precepts that I believe in. One is that everybody has good intentions, and the second one is that everybody does the best they can with what they have to work with. And from that approach, when I see something where I'm disappointed by something someone has done, I look for what are the root cause problems there. Is it a case where they don't have a tool that they need, or they don't have the background that they need, they don't have the training that they need? But I find that to be a very good approach and a very good way to get people to kind of relax and talk to me about what might be going on.
What is your prediction for air travel, say 100 years from now? And this tape will exist for people to say, Dr. Vicki Johnson said this 100 years ago.
Well, that's funny. Yes, I think that we will still have different levels. We'll still have big commercial airliners to fly. We'll see them flying more point to point rather than hub and spoke, so we won't have to go to Dallas or Atlanta or Houston to get on a flight to go someplace else. The air taxis will be running around. It'll be like the Jetsons. I can go out to my garage and hop in and punch the button and wind up where I want to be without having to think about it.
Those would be for short flights, though, right?
Well, it will become
would it be
longer.
Like across country?
It will become longer. Originally, it will be within cities and cities to their airports, and then it will go regional, and then eventually the goal is that it will become commercial airplanes. The battery technology will have to advance a lot to make that, but that's the vision.
All right. Dr. Vicki Johnson, thank you so much.
Thank you, Victor.
It's been fun talking to you.
It has been fun. I've enjoyed it.
I did too. Thank you. And thank you for watching this week's edition of One on One. If you have any questions or comments, please send us an email. oneonone@kpts.org is the address. We like hearing from you. Until next time, I'm Victor Hogstrom, and I'll see you again soon.